Right, hey guys, how are we doing? It's been a while, but we are back on a Tekking 101 video, and we are checking out the One Piece world explained, Grand Line, Red Line, and more. Obviously the world building within One Piece is incredible, and the actual way everything's explained within the world is great, but I need stuff breaking down. I've already said this, I'm a bit dumb, stuff goes over my head and I miss things, so I'm going to check this out, and there's loads of Tekking 101 videos I want to check out now. One was the filler devil fruit that a load of you were asking for a while. Probably check that out, but I want to check out the World Government Explained after this, and then we'll go from there. So this is the One Piece World Explained. Let's check it out.
Hey guys, Tekking here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the One Piece world, the actual physical world, and we're going to break it down geographically. I'm going to take a look at all the different seas and islands and the different phenomena that exist in the One Piece world. You know, as someone who's read the entire manga and the anime, like I've been caught up for a while now, I always thought it was something relatively simple. But I got a lot of comments on a last video I posted that are like, hey, you should make a video explaining how this works. And then a lot of people were replying to the comment like, yeah, I've always been a little confused about how the One Piece world works. Well, alright, I'll give it a shot. I'm no fucking geography teacher, but I'll go ahead. Also, though, I should warn you, I'm going to have to use some of my own drawings in this video as visual aids to really illustrate where I'm going from here. I mean, I found some other stuff on the internet as well that I might use, but I think starting off with just this might be a little bit too confusing.
That is a lot.
So we're going to break it down a little bit. Warning though, my drawing skills are probably worse than Conjuro's. So let's just get started, right? Okay.
Cool.
You guys recognize this? Okay, you should, because this is the map of our current Earth. This is where we are living right now, okay? Now you notice that a lot of maps that exist on our Earth have to be stretched a bit, because our Earth is round. The same with the One Piece world. It is also a round Earth. It also has a few moons as well, 7 total in count, but we're not here to talk about that now. My point is, what I'm going to show you is going to be the One Piece world map, but I have to stretch it out in order for it to make a lot of sense, in order to include all of the aspects of the world, okay? So let's start with just the ocean, okay? Well, most of the One Piece world is ocean. Now, there's only one main continent in the entire One Piece world, and that would be the Red Line, which stretches right down the center, right at longitude 0 in our world, where the Prime Meridian would be. Now, as I said, I had to stretch this out, so in order for it to make sense, it's going straight down the middle of the screen, but you can also see the halves of it on the left and right side. But it does look like this. It stretches all the way around the entire planet, okay? So that's the Red Line. Next we have the Grand Line, which is where most of the plot of One Piece takes place. It's a very unique ocean current, and it cuts horizontally across the planet, right along latitude 0, where the equator would be on our Earth. So it basically is perpendicular to the Red Line. The Grand Line is broken into 2 halves. The first half is referred to as Paradise, and the second half, the New World. Okay, so that's the basic idea we have going on here, but there's also some other things I have to point out. So, for one thing, you notice that the world is now split into 4 different seas
so you got
or
the
oceans.
East Blue.
These are referred to as the East Blue, the South Blue, the North Blue, and the West Blue. And these are the seas where most of the citizens in the One Piece universe live in. Remember, most of the story takes place on the Grand Line, but compared to the rest of the world, the Grand Line is a very small percentage of the total world's surface size. Now, in order for you to get the full picture here, there's still a few other things geographically I have to put on this map. The first is Reverse Mountain, which is placed right here, intersecting the Red Line and the Grand Line. Now, Reverse Mountain is a very unique mountain. As you can probably tell by this diagram, you see ocean currents flowing up it, and then you see another ocean current that goes down into the Grand Line. Here's how this works. Right where the Grand Line meets the Red Line, there's a giant mountain, and in each one of these seas, there's a current that flows one way up the mountain, okay? So it doesn't flow back down, it only flows up.
How they did. They had to
and
go
then, once you get to the top of Reverse Mountain, if you follow this current and you don't smash into the side of the rock face when you get into this current, it'll take you all the way up to the top of Reverse Mountain and on top of the Red Line, and then it'll drop you into the 5th current, which will take you directly into the first half of the Grand Line. Now, this is how most pirates access the Grand Line. But you might be wondering, why would they go through all the trouble of sailing up these deadly ocean currents on top of a mountain to get dropped in the Grand Line?
Why?
According to this map, shouldn't they be able just to sail directly into the Grand Line depending on what part of the world they're in? Well, the problem with that is the calm belt, which is the last thing I'm going to add to this main map here. Now, the calm belt gets its name because there is no wind or ocean currents that flow while you're in there. So unless your ship has an engine or paddles or some other way to propel itself, you're not going to be able to get by just on the wind or the currents alone. Also, the calm belt is home to a bunch of sea kings that like to nest there, which are giant sea monsters. So, for those two reasons, you're not going to be able to get through the calm belt and just sail directly into the Grand Line. In fact, for most pirate crews that don't have a way to propel their ship without wind or current, there is no way. It's pretty much impossible. The Marines get around this by having special boats that are coated with sea prism stones, so they can trick the sea kings into thinking they're not there, and they have paddle ships which allow them to travel the calm belt into the Grand Line, so they can come and go as they please, basically. But in terms of just regular citizens or whatever, basically the only way to gain access to the Grand Line is through Reverse Mountain, which is pretty tricky and dangerous, but calm belt is basically assured as instant death for those that would dare to attempt it.
You've got no way to go through your screws.
Okay, so that's the basic layout of the One Piece world at its most fundamental level for you to understand.
That was really good.
Now, obviously, there's a shit ton of islands all strewn out the 4 different seas and both halves of the Grand Line, but there's so many of those that I didn't bother including them on this map, but this is the basic layout of how the world is structured, okay? So before we get to the fun, which is the Grand Line, Paradise and the New World, let's just talk about the 4 seas. So the story begins in the East Blue, and the East Blue is really the only ocean that's explored completely out of the 4. We get to see other parts of the world a little bit, like we know Law and Doflamingo and the Gurma Double Six are from the North Blue, so we see that a little bit. Chopper got sent to the Torino Kingdom, which is in the South Blue, by Kuma, so we get to see those areas a little bit. Not really much from the West Blue. The West Blue is kind of the most underused ones. We don't get to see that all too often. Shanks is from the West Blue. And I believe like a few of the supernovas, like Beige, is from the West Blue, but we don't really know much about it. But the East Blue is the one that's fleshed out the most. Now, it's important to mention that even though most of the story takes place on the Grand Line, which has all these crazy weather patterns and everything,
it's so
outside of the Grand Line, which is the exception, the climate and the weather and the seasons work pretty much exactly the same way they do in our world. So you can navigate the 4 seas with standard navigation skills and even a normal compass, which Nami had when she was planning her journey to the Grand Line. She had like an ordinary compass with like north, south, east, and west, which confirms that the One Piece world has magnetic north and a magnetic south pole. And when she got to the Grand Line, that compass was useless. You needed a special compass, a log post, to navigate the Grand Line. But aside from that, in the rest of the world, it's pretty much simple. Also, the climate is basically tropical, you know. They jump around a few islands in the East Blue, and all of them pretty much have the same exact climate. By the time we got to Arlong Park, which was closer to the Grand Line, we started to see palm trees and very tropical areas. There is another island in the East Blue, we don't know where this is at, but it's called Tequila Wolf, and this is where Robin was sent by Kuma, and it's a more winter-type setting there. So I'm going to assume that the 4 seas work the same as they would in our world. The closer you get to the north, the colder the climate becomes, and the closer you get to the equator, the more tropical it becomes.
Interesting.
Makes sense. There is an official map of the East Blue. I say official because I don't really like it all too much, but I'll throw it up here anyway. The reason I don't like this map is because they do not include a lot of fucking islands. They don't include Gecko Island, where Usopp is from, Syrup Village, that's where Usopp's from. They do not include Log Town, where they enter they right before they enter the Grand Line. They don't include Log Town on this thing. They don't include Fuchsia Village as part of the Goa Kingdom on Dawn Island, which is where Luffy is from, or Zoro's village or anything like that. It's pretty simple. And it's obviously more for like aesthetic-wise than anything else. But that's the basic layout of at least part of the East Blue. I don't even think this is all of it. I think they're cropping it out at certain points here. And Tequila Wolf's not on here either. But this is the closest thing we have to an official map of the East Blue. Also, it would seem that each one of the blue seas are divided into regions. And don't worry about that too much because it's not really brought up at all. It's just that it was mentioned that the Baratier, the seafaring restaurant that Sanji and Zeph worked at, that's not on any kind of island. It's just in the ocean.
It's floating,
and it was referred to be in the Sambasa region of the East Blue. So kind of the same thing with our world. Each different region of the sea is probably bordered. Maybe it's like a country thing. Once again,
Right.
don't think too much about it. I'm just giving you information that we have available here. Also about the Baratier, it was stated to be very close to the Grand Line and also the Calm Belt, which is why you had Mihawk showing up there, and Don Krieg's crew, which apparently was like a huge 50-ship pirate armada.
Turning up,
they went into they somehow went into the
Sliced
Grand
up
Line
all
and then
ships.
managed to escape through the Calm Belt, but their ship was completely destroyed by the time they got back, and all their crew was half dying.
So yeah, they went through
and it was probably not just all because of Mihawk, it was also probably because of the journey through the Calm Belt, and they managed to get back. But yeah, the Baratier is very close to that general area there. I should also bring up that whatever ocean you're born in the One Piece world, if you're just like a regular civilian, if you're not a pirate, or if you're not a member of the Marines, pretty much means that that's the ocean you're going to be in the rest of your life, because traveling to another ocean, unless you are a pirate or a member of the Marines, or you're just insanely wealthy, is very difficult to get there. Brooke noted that when Sanji was born in the North Blue, but then ended up in the East Blue, Brooke was like, wow, that's a really big deal. ordinary people wouldn't be able to do that. That's, how they realized Sanji was part of the Gurma, which is like this really technologically advanced country which was able to traverse the Red Line. But ordinary citizens, mostly, whatever sea you're born in, you're kind of stuck there. Allow me to illustrate this a little bit. Let's say you are born in the West Blue. Go Shanks, hometown hero. You're born in the West Blue, and you want to travel to another sea to live. So what are your options? Well, the easiest one, relatively speaking, would be the South Blue, because all you would have to do there is just travel over the Red Line. The problem is the Red Line is not like a continent where you can just land on it and then just walk across the Red Line and then plop down into the South Blue. No. The Red Line is a fucking giant mountain that effectively cuts the world in half, except for Reverse Mountain and one other place where there's like one opening.
It's very, very, very high up.
It's huge. We don't exactly know how tall it is. We know that from the ocean floor to the sea level, it's 10,000 meters. And it's just a straight-up continent that just stretches straight up. But it goes even further than that after sea level. It stretches way further up. So probably not super high, but it's at least a few thousand meters above sea level.
So it's
not as simple as just anchoring yourself on the Red Line, walking across, and then plopping back down. In fact, the only way that you could do that is if you had access to some flying machine, or the Gurma 66 had technology that allowed them their ships allowed to actually climb up the side of the Red Line, or something like that. Fisher Tiger, badass that he is, actually scaled the entire thing with his bare hands.
Normal people are going to be able to do that.
You wouldn't be able to just to cross the Red Line. It's like a natural border. And there's no rivers or canals either. For the most part, aside from Reverse Mountain and the hole to Fishman Island, which I'll get to later, there is no canal system for you to travel through it. So that's easier said than done to just skip over the Red Line. Okay, so the next option, what about the North Blue? The North Blue, you don't have to travel over any sort of landmass. All you have to do is cut through the Calm Belt, then the New World, and then the other Calm Belt. Well, I already gave the problem why you just can't cross the Calm Belt. There's no ocean currents, and there's giant sea monsters everywhere. But even if you can somehow manage to get through that, the New World is the place that has a boiling hot sea, an island that's constantly bombarded by fucking lightning rain 24/7, and a 1,000-year-old elephant that has a race of furries living on a country on its back. My point is, there's a lot of fucking things that'll kill you in that sea, and if you're an ordinary civilian, you have no chance. So North Blue is out, and then finally you get to the East Blue, which is the best of both worlds, because you would have to cross one part of the Grand Line as well as hopping over the Red Line. So yeah, there's really no way. That would be the hardest for you to go from the West Blue to the East Blue. Unless you are part of a select group. And you can't just go up Reverse Mountain either. You can't just go up the West Blue current of Reverse Mountain and then plop down the East current side, because the currents are always pushing you up. And then when you get to the top, it forces you down to that fifth current. Although I suppose it would be possible to go from the West Blue up Reverse Mountain, fall down into Paradise, and then you would just have to take your chances with the Grand Line, climb it, and then the Calm Belt, and then you can get to either the East Blue or the South Blue that way. But Yeah, so pretty much just stay where you are in whatever ocean you are, unless you have high aspirations for where you're gonna be in life.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Like,
I can't
it's
tease you long enough. I had to have a lot of setup. You know me. Let's finally get into the fucking Grand Line. You know, the place where the bulk of this fucking story takes place.
Yay.
Alright, so first half of the Grand Line referred to as Paradise. Here is my rough sketch of it. As you can see here, you have Reverse Mountain on the left, which is the main entrance to it. All the four seas flow up it, down the one current, and then on the right side you see the other side of the world where the red line stretches around. Okay, so let's just throw some fixed locations in here. Okay, the islands are going to be they're not going to be exact because Oda isn't really specific. He's not giving us a map of like all the different islands and how the routes that the Straw Hats took. But there are a few locations that we know are fixed. One is the Twin Capes, which is, as you can see right here, is the area right as you come down into Paradise. There's the Twin Capes, which is a lighthouse where Crocus lives, and he's the lighthouse keeper there. And this is also the location where Laboon is waiting for Brook. You'd think this place would be a little bit more busy because it's the main entrance to the Grand Line, but most people seem to just, come down the Reverse Mountain and just keep on going and just kind of ignore Crocus and the whale. I'm just saying, as the main entrance, the first place you encounter in the Grand Line, I thought it would be more of a town or more of a bigger place than just a common lighthouse with an old man and a giant whale. And apparently the Straw Hats are one of the few people that stop there and help out, but maybe a Crocus is just a nice guy, who knows. Okay, so next up we have Marie Joie, the Holy Land, which is located on the opposite side of the world on top of the Red Line. Marie Joie is where the world nobles live. And it's this kind of, it's the holy city, so pirates are of course not allowed there, and it's also the main way that people will transport themselves from one side of the Red Line to the other. We don't know exactly how this works, but the world nobles and maybe the Marines at least have some method to go from the base of the Red Line all the way up to Marie Joie. And I don't know how that works. I don't know if there's like a giant staircase somewhere. They have access to like a hot air balloon. I don't know. Okay, but there's some way to get from, the base of the Red Line all the way up to Marie Joie. So what people will do when they want to go from Paradise to the New World is they'll stop here at the Red Line. They'll have to somehow get permission to go into Marie Joie, and then they'll figure out another way to get on the other side. But this is probably only like VIPs, like the World Nobles and the Marines, and maybe a very select.
I think that's where the revelry's being held,
like maybe like kings and stuff would be able to do it. But I don't see a normal citizen just somehow gaining access into Marie Joie and then going through all that shit there. Okay, next we have, right now it is referred to as G1, but it is formerly the Marine Headquarters, which are located right here next to Marie Joie at the base of the Red Line, almost at the center of the world there. So before the time skip, it was Marine Headquarters, and after the time skip, after Akainu becomes the new Fleet Admiral, he switches it with their Marine base, which was on the opposite side, on the other side of Marie Joie, and so that's where Marine Headquarters is there. I'll show you that once we get to the New World.
Cool.
But yeah, this is the G1 naval base right here, which is still very imposing in its own right. Okay, so also along this line, the government has two other facilities that are connected through a special current. You have Impel Down, which is the greatest jail in the world, and that's actually located in the Calm Belt.
Makes sense.
And then you have Enies Lobby, which is the Judiciary Island, which is located here. And these are three main government facilities. Usually what will happen is pirates will be taken to Enies Lobby to be judged and convicted, and then they'll either be taken one of two places. They'll be taken to Impel Down to be imprisoned, or they'll be taken to Marine HQ to be executed.
Right, makes sense. Well, that makes sense as to why they're able to travel so quickly between the lot then, yeah, because they went from Impel Down to Marineford.
And they can only gain access to it through their means. They have these huge things called the Gates of Justice, and I have no idea how any of this shit is built. I don't know how the fuck you build a giant steel gate that's like the size of a mountain in the middle of the ocean. For that matter, I don't even know how you build a giant prison on the ocean floor that stretches up above sea level,
and then all
which,
that
as
stuff
we've
that goes
already
on in
said,
between
it's
each
pretty
one as
deep,
well.
like 10,000 meters or some such. So I don't know how any of this shit is done. You just have to take this shit with a grain of salt, basically.
Definitely.
But it's because that these giant gates are there, it creates a very exclusive current.
Yeah,
and
so when
anyone
it's
that comes
opened,
close to this current that's not a
changes the
marine
current,
will get
doesn't
sucked
it?
into
Yeah,
these whirlpools and their ships will be destroyed. And the only way to get in is you have to have like a marine clearance, and then that'll open the gate a little bit, and then you can get through. And then that allows speedy travel to either Impel Down, Enies Lobby, or Marine HQ,
Thingy stays
like
behind an Impel Down to open the gate.
So these are the locations that we know for a fact where they are. The triangle that makes up the special current, the tub current, that might be not exact. But we know that Marine HQ is at the base of the red line, and we know that Impel Down is in the comm belt. So using like triangular logic, we can figure out where Enies Lobby is, okay? Okay, so now we get to the islands on the Grand Line. As I explained earlier, you need a special compass to navigate. A normal one will just be thrown off because each island in the Grand Line is magnetically charged, so a normal compass will just not work. You need a special compass called the log pose, which will actually lock on to each island's unique magnetic field.
And then you can actually guide yourself to each one.
And the way Crocus explained it is that once you arrive in the Grand Line in Paradise, there are 7 different paths that you can take. So you get yourselves a log pose, and then that'll lock on to one island, and then that after a while will lock onto the next island, and then that after a while will lock onto the next island, and that's how you travel the Grand Line. That's how you you go from island to island eventually until you reach the next half of it. So that's how it usually goes. Now the problem with exactly the location of the islands that the Straw Hats have landed on, the reason that's a problem is because, number one, we do not know which one of these 7 unique paths that the Straw Hats took. And also the distance between each one is variable. All we can do is just kind of guess. So the Straw Hats, here are the islands that they've traveled on so far. The first island they went to is Cactus Island, where Whiskey Pete was, followed by Little Garden, followed by Drum Island, followed by Alabasta, which was also known as Sandy Island, although I think now it's just the Alabasta Kingdom. These islands are for the most part in the beginning stages of Paradise, the first half of Paradise. Then we get to Jaya, and then after Jaya is Long Ring Longland, and then Water 7, which are more or less, I'd say, the middle of Paradise. For those of you wanting me to mention Skypiea, that's a whole other fucking can of worms. Hold on, I'll get to that.
Okay, cool.
Then we get to Water 7. Now, Water 7 is unique because it has access to the Sea Train, which is like a special network that's connected to other islands
quicker way to travel
that are around it. One of which being Enies Lobby. So Water 7 and Enies Lobby have to be pretty much close to each other in order for the sea train track to work. It is a fair distance from Water 7 to Enies Lobby, but it's not like a ridiculously long distance, okay? So Water 7 is pretty close to Enies Lobby, which is what I said is the whole tub current here. Along with that, you also have a stretch of the sea called the Devil's Sea, which is where Thriller Bark was located. Thriller Bark, though, is an island, but it's not a magnetically charged island. It's an island that came from West Blue that was converted into a pirate ship and somehow made it into the Grand Line. Once again, don't ask me how to explain this shit. How the fuck do you turn an island into a ship? How the fuck do you pilot it into the Grand... I don't know, man. It's just fucking confusing.
Yeah, Thriller Bark moves,
and then after Thriller Bark, you had the Sabaody Archipelago, which was very close to Marine HQ and also very close to the Red Line. In fact, Luffy and the other Straw Hats actually just bumped into the Grand Line at a random point, and they couldn't figure out a way to get around it, so they had to go into the Sabaody Archipelago, which was close by. Also, during the war with Whitebeard, this is where a lot of the citizens of Marineford, Marine HQ, were sent. They were evacuated to Sabaody, so it's very close to both the Red Line and the Marine HQ, and it's also considered kind of like the last
to get to Fishman Island, don't you go
on the Grand Line. This is where all the rookies gather, all the supernovas, and it's very high in pirate activity on the archipelago. Also, because it is an archipelago, it's made up of a series of giant trees, of mangrove trees, so it also does not have a magnetic field. Now, a little bit about the climate on the Grand Line. So the climate is fucking insane. You can have giant storms, typhoons, hurricanes, blizzards, thunderstorms at the drop of a hat. Anything is possible. Also, you have a bunch of wacky, crazy weather patterns, like candy rain, or just anything crazy can happen there. It's just like it's Oda's dream to just draw just crazy, wacky shit. Like Oda could be like, there's a giant whirlpool made of cotton candy, and it would just make sense.
That'd be amazing.
Hey, Ennie's lobby is actually located on a giant hole. Like, there's a hole there, and an island is just floating in this hole. So just a crazy bunch of climates happen there.
It looks sick, though, doesn't it?
That is because each of the islands has a very unique weather pattern. The islands in the Grand Line are considered as summer islands, autumn islands, winter islands, or spring islands that give an idea for their basic climate. But on top of just their basic climate, they also adhere to the 4 seasons anyway.
Right.
So you could have a summer island, which is pretty warm year-round, even during the winter, but then when you get to Summer Island summer, it gets really fucking hot, or you get Winter Island winter, which is really fucking cold. And because each of these islands has a unique weather pattern in its own right, and there's so many islands like smashed together, the space between these islands, that's why the weather's so fucking wacky crazy. And you need to be a trained navigator in order to go through these and really get from island to island.
Cool, it's so
but a tall tale sign of when you're approaching a new island is when the weather will stabilize. So when you're for example, when the Straw Hats were traveling from Little Garden to Drum Island, when they're in the middle of the ocean, you get crazy weather and lightning storms and hurricanes and oh shit, and there's a tornado. What am I gonna do?
God.
And then when the weather stabilizes and it starts to snow, that's when they know that they're getting close to a winter island, which was Drum Island. Also, side note, the Red Line is actually basically a string of winter, summer, autumn, and spring islands, just basically in mountain form. So they themselves are adhering to the climate as well, only on the Grand Line, though. Only the parts of the Grand Line that actually overlap with the Red Line have this unique climate pattern. Reverse Mountain was also referred to as a winter island or a winter mountain, which is why the ocean currents, rise up. Okay, so that was Paradise, the first half of the Grand Line.
Okay, now the New World.
Did I confuse you? Well, I'm sorry, because it's going to get a lot more confusing, because this is just the sea level. This is what's just going on on the actual ocean, like with the islands and stuff like that. There's also Sky Islands, and there's also Undersea Islands.
Like the Fishing Island.
Now, thankfully, these actually don't play a huge role in the story. There's one arc, Skypiea, which takes place in the sky, but after that we don't really touch upon it all that much. And once again, like the same thing with Skypiea, there's only one arc that takes place under the ocean, and then we just kind of move on into the New World. But I will mention how the Sky Island thing works here. Okay, so here is Paradise, and here is the island of Jaya that I will just be using.
Seeing this from a side view here, not aerial.
Okay, so you can see that there's 2 cloud layers here.
Yes.
7,000 meters above sea level, you have the White Sea, an ocean that you can actually sail a ship on. If you can somehow manage to get your ship up there to the White Sea, 7,000 meters above sea level, your ship will actually sail around on the current. You can even swim in it if you're careful and if you're not a Devil Fruit user. And there's also islands located on the White Sea. The way this was explained is that there's a special chemical in the Blue Sea in the Grand Line called pyrobrine. And when the water cycle occurs, when it's like, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, when this pyrobrine is evaporated and goes into the cloud layer, it actually becomes semi-tangible. So you can actually exist.
Which makes sense as well, because it's like seawater, isn't it, that you can't swim in, so then if that is what's evaporated into those clouds, then it makes sense as to why Devil Fruit users can't swim in it as well.
3,000 meters above that, the White Sea, so 10,000 meters above sea level, you have the White Sea, which is where Skypiea is located, as well as the upper Yard and Angel Island, and this is where the Straw Hats had their adventure in the sky. Now, I should explain how exactly do you get to the White Sea, or the White Sea. Well, getting to the White Sea is the hardest part, because it's literally trying to figure out how to make your ship fly 7,000 meters
like they found
straight
that current, didn't they, that
there's
like
2
just
methods
shot
of this.
them
The
off.
one that was utilized by the Straw Hats that we know how it works is the knock-up stream, which is a massive current that gets released from vents under the ocean, like geothermal vents that'll just explode, releasing a huge current of water that shoots straight up into the sky.
To show how powerful it is, it did shoot out part of an island up there, so it's definitely going to be able to shoot a ship up there.
Or if she's Nami, then you can figure out a way to sail on this current, actually sail on the current vertically, straight up, and then you will land in the White Sea. The other way to get up there was mentioned by Gonfall, and it was the summit of High West. I have absolutely no idea what that is. Nobody does. But Dawnfall does mention that's the normal way most people get to the islands in the sky, and that there's other islands in the White Sea that they would have had to do the island hopping thing there too. I would assume the summit of High West, I would assume it's maybe a really tall mountain in West Blue, because it's High West, and then if you can somehow manage to get on top of this mountain, maybe there's a way to get to the sky. That's pure conjecture. I have no idea if that's how it actually works, but that's the way most people get to Sky Island. Okay. Then, getting from the White Sea to the White Sea, that's a lot easier. There's a giant lobster that takes you up.
Easy enough.
It's I don't know. Okay, so that's in general how the sky works. There's 2 layers to it, and that's the methods on how to get up there, so that's all I'm going to discuss there. Nami also got sent to a sky island called Weatheria, which was just on the White Sea.
And that's where she got sent weather stuff more.
Okay, so now that was the sky. Now let's talk about under the water.
Under the sea.
On the ocean floor, there's islands and a series of towns as well, where a bunch of sea creatures live. Mermen and fishmen are creatures in the One Piece universe that can breathe underwater, so they have like their own little society under the ocean. And that society culminates at Fishman Island, which is located directly on the seafloor below Marijois. So, as I said, the red line is really tall. It's 10,000 meters from seafloor to sea level, and then it's an undetermined height from sea level to Marijois. But at the very bottom of it, at the seafloor, there's a hole in the red line, and inside that hole, that's Fishman Island. And that's also the method on how a lot of the pirates go from the first half of the Grand Line Paradise into the second half. They actually have to get their ship coated with a special resin so they can dive all the way down to the ocean floor, go through this hole, usually stop at Fishman Island for supplies and stuff, and for some mermaid lovin', and then they figure out a way to get through that hole, back all the way up, and then they'll pop out in the New World. And that's really the only way you can do it as a pirate, because, like I said, pirates aren't allowed to go through the other method of going through Marijois and then dropping down the other side. Alright, that's pretty much all about the undersea world. It's mentioned a lot, more on cover stories, like Hachan's cover story and Jinbei's cover story. It's noted that there are like societies that live down there, like sea creatures have like towns and stuff they live in. But that's all, essentially. Okay, so, finally, last part of this video. I know it's probably a lot longer than I figured it would be, but now we're going to get to the New World. And this will be quick relatively because we actually do not know a lot about it. It's a very mysterious place. It's where we're at right now. Alright, so here's the basic layout of the New World. So now we see Marijois on the left and Reverse Mountain on the right. So it circles back around on the other half of the planet.
I really need to pee
like
as well,
I said,
guys, so
we
when
have
this
a Marine
finishes, I am
HQ,
going
which is
to
now
really speed
located
through
at the
my
base
outro.
of the red line on the other side of Marijois. So there's no question why that is. Marijois is the place where all the world noble is, the most important people on the planet, and that's also where the world government is based, and the Gorosei are, so it would make sense why there would be 2 huge fucking marine bases on either side. So
it makes sense.
Pirates, will stay away and they won't try to do something like Fisher Tiger did, basically. But Fisher Tiger was just one exception there. Islands in the New World work even more erratically than in the first half, than in Paradise.
It's crazy.
So normally the only way to go from island to island was following the log pose method, locking onto one island's magnetic pole and then jumping to another one. The problem is the islands in the New World, their magnetic poles even shift and change, and sometimes they just disappear, and the weather's even more fucking batshit crazy. As I told you, there was a sea that was constantly, boiling. How that works. Then there's Totland, which is where Big Mom's base is, and all their islands are made out of like sweets and shit. So it's crazy. So in order to navigate the New World, you need a special log pose that has 3 different compasses on it. So if you're going to one island and one of the compasses, loses its magnetic pole, at least you have 2 other options. Some of the islands that were mentioned, the first 3 islands that you will encounter when you exit Fishman Island, as told by Smoker, are Mystoria Island, Risky Red Island, and Raijin Island. Raijin Island being the most dangerous. The compass of the log pose will be the most erratic toward islands that have really crazy weather patterns. Basically, the more it the compass needle bends is the more dangerous that island is. And Raijin Island is the island that has all the fucking lightning bolt rain coming down on it, so that's why it's dangerous. On top of that, we also have Punk Hazard, which was an island that didn't get drawn by the log pose. I'm not sure if that has a magnetic pole or not. Then we have Dressrosa, which is where the base of the Don Quixote family was. After that, we have Zou. And Zou is an island that also does not have a magnetic pole because it's on the back of an elephant. Also, I forgot to mention this, but there's also a thing called an eternal pose, a compass that is forever locked on one particular island. It hasn't been used a lot in the series. I don't even know if you could use an eternal pose while in the New World because of how islands lose their magnetic pole. But yeah, there are eternal poses, so you'll take one for like Alabasta, and no matter how many islands you've been on or how long you've been on it, the compass will always be pointing to Alabasta. It'll have a constant memory of it there. After Zou, as I said, the Straw Hats go to Totland, which is like an archipelago. It's a series of islands with Whole Cake Island, where Big Mom lives at the center. And that's where we are right now in the story. So we can't really go much more beyond that. Now, there are other islands that exist that have been mentioned in the New World, such as Wano Kuni,
so we're not there within his
Elbaf, the Island of Giants, which is probably also in the New World. We don't know that for certain. And on top of it all is the mythical island of Raftel, the island that Goldie Roger purportedly left.
Apparently that's where One Piece is.
Now, most people would put Raftel at the very, very far end
You'd think because of how the journey's going.
Like right here, like right on the other side of Reverse Mountain.
Because everything's been chronologically
I'm going to put it there right now, but we just don't know. We don't know where Raftel is, and Raftel is not the kind of island that you can just get to.
No,
you have to have the 4 road poneglyphs to figure out 4 different locations, and then you intersect those locations together, and then that one point is where Raftel will rise up from the ocean, like a raft, you get it? But we still don't know anything about that, so we just don't know. On top of that, there's also other islands in the first half of the Grand Line that we just don't know where they're located, so I didn't really mention them there. Kuma sent a lot of the Straw Hats to, like I said, varying islands. He sent Nami to
loads of different random places, wasn't it? Oh my god, sorry, my legs are completely dead.
Chopper to Torino Kingdom in the South Blue, which makes sense because the East Blue and South Blue border Paradise, so it would make sense why they sent them there.
This has been really good video.
Zoro got sent to Gloomy Island, Frankie got sent to Baltimore, Usopp got sent to the Boeing Archipelago, Luffy got sent to Amazon Lily, which is in the Calm Belt.
Oh yeah, of course.
So very hard to get to Amazon Lily under normal methods there. And Brook got sent to Hungaria Island, which is also on the Grand Line, and Sanji got sent to Kamabaka Kingdom, which is I also believe on the Grand Line there. So those islands are probably on the other paths that the Straw Hats did not take. Maybe that was Oda's way of showcasing some of the other island paths that Luffy and the gang did not take there. But we have no idea where they're located, so I'm not even going to bother trying to plot them on the map. But aside from that, I'm pretty much done. It's just one more thing, and that's the moon!
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the moon is, well, at least one of the moons. As I said, there's about 7 of them in the One Piece story. But tell you what, if you want to go learn about the moon, go watch this video right here.
Oh.
It'll tell you everything you need to know about the moon.
Cool.
Alright, and how you could possibly get there. Okay. Well, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope this video made sense.
It's been very good, very good. That was very good.
Tangents. I'm hoping I didn't confuse you.
No, that was fast.
But like I said, I think that if you just, you don't have to like keep in mind every single aspect of this at the same time. But I think if you just read the story, you would have a basic understanding of how it works. There's the Paradise, the first half of the Grand Line. There's the New World, which is the second half, and then you have the 4 Seas and the Calm Belt, and that's been Reverse Mountain, and that's pretty much all you really need to know is this basic diagram here. But I decided to go more into detail with it. Well, anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for sticking with me all this time. And I hope this answered some of your questions. Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember to subscribe and like for more One Piece shit. This will be Techie 101 signing out. Later.
Amazing. Right, that was class. I really, really need to pee. So, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, upload a link in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I have to help support the channel. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, and leave comments down below. Let me know how to watch us in future videos. And I'll see you guys. All you guys, next time. Bye.